Welcome to the Bounce Club. You think you're tough enough? Abdel Adrian, Gorion's Ward. For 4 and a white, you get a 4/4 legendary creature human warrior that says when Abdel Adrian enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until Abdel Adrian leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way, and choose a background. The background we're choosing is Far Traveler. For 2 and a white, you get a legendary enchantment background. Commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target tapped creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. The point of this whole deck is going to be Flicker. We utilize some usually mediocre effects that just one-time ETBs or other things of the sort to make sure that we can just repeatedly abuse them over and over and over again. Enter the battlefield, destroy a permanent, that's great. Doing that every single one of your end steps, even better. And the best part is the thing that actually does the heavy lifting is going to be tucked under Abdel Adrian the entire time, so they can't even interact with what's going to be doing most of the work. But with the insane amount of card draw and repeatable ramp that we have, we're going to just be able to recast him every single time that he does die, so they're not going to get many chances at all to even destroy what we're tucking underneath him. But first, the man has to be tapped for this to work, so how are we going to do that? We can try it with things like Honor-Worn Shaku. Honor-Worn Shaku is a 3-mana artifact that says tap and add a colorless, and you can tap an untapped legendary permanent you control to untap Honor-Worn Shaku. Honor-Worn Shaku is great because it also allows your Far Traveler to tap for mana, or any other legendary permanents that you would happen to have in this deck. Or you could also use things like Holdout Settlement, Survivor's Encampment, or Springleaf Drum for even just a little bit of mana ramp. And it ensures that he taps down without even having to enter combat. But sometimes you still need to go to combat to tap him down, so you could use things like Key to the City. Key to the City is a 2-mana artifact that says tap, discard a card, up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn, and whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. That, and with Rogue's Passage, essentially you're just going to be able to make him unblockable, and he can't get blocked. And I mean, sometimes the only solution is commander damage, so these unblockable effects can be extremely useful in getting in as much damage as we possibly can to all of our opponents. But once he does get tapped, that means that we can start our Bounce Club finally. Every turn cycle, he's going to add a 1/1 soldier equal to the number of things we exile with him, kind of like a tiny multiplying crowd of soldiers.
Now everybody in the 313, put your mother hands up and sing with me.
Do you get it? Most of you guys are within the same age range as me, so you should. If you're children, don't watch that movie until you're an adultron. But with all the permanents that we're exiling, we want to know exactly what kind of cards we're talking about when we say ETB effects. So we'll use things like Combat Thresher. Combat Thresher is a 7-mana 3/3 artifact creature construct with double strike, and when Combat Thresher enters the battlefield, draw a card. You could also cast it for 2 and a white as a prototype, meaning it'll just be a 1/1 instead of a 3/3. Combat Thresher is a little special because you can just leave it out after an ETB flicker, meaning that it no longer has prototype, so it's just a 3/3 double strike that ETBs to draw a card, but if you want to continue to flicker it, you can absolutely do that. Similar effects you're going to find on Elsewhere Flask, Roving Harper, Wall of Omens, Spirited Companion. Each of these do that similar thing where ETBs draw a card, usually for around 3 mana, sometimes 2. Or you could just spend 3 mana on Invasion of Dominaria. You get a Battle Siege with 5 defense that says when Invasion of Dominaria enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life and draw a card. Even though it's a battle, you can still exile it and return it. And even if an opponent decides to be funny with it and get rid of all the counters on it, it's a permanent that it flips into, meaning you can just flicker the Angel, get the Battle of Dominaria back on its front side, and take advantage of it. But we don't just draw cards, we also get to ramp in this deck, so we get things like Core Cartographer. Core Cartographer is 3 and a white for a 2/2 creature core scout that says when Core Cartographer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle your library. I love Core Cartographer because it doesn't care how many lands our opponents control. That's why I also run Scampering Surveyor in here, but because it was in a budget deck, I didn't include, at the time, Sad Robot. So if you want Sad Robot, put him in. It's perfect for this deck. So with Abdel Adrian, essentially everything you're going to be flickering will be making you a small, tiny army, but they don't need to be small and tiny forever. We have some ways to make sure that they can get bigger, and we'll get into that. But first, a message through dance. Welcome back here to another competitive dance competition. Here we have Power Budget TCG doing his best interpretive dance of, yeah, I think it's struggling. I think his dance is called Struggling. There we go. Good form. Ooh, I think that one, yes, that one means he wants you to touch that like button. Yes. And I see he's also doing the stanky leg. Okay, that must mean he wants you to wiggle that subscribe button. Just getting in here that he is currently out of breath, so he had to turn off the audio. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's get back to the main program. I record this in order, so I am still kind of out of breath. Let's get to the killing and start using some anthems. Not the national kind, but the glorious kind. The one that kills. Kills with things like Commander's Insignia.
Commander's Insignia is an enchantment for 2 white that says creatures you control get +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game.
So here's a fun bit, and why I point this one out before everything else. Commander's Insignia adds up every single time that you've cast both of your commanders from the command zone. So if you cast Far Traveler once and Abdel twice, that's 3 times you cast your commander from the command zone. That's +3/+3 to each creature, all your tokens, and your commander. It's also important that we don't want to add any anthems that give vigilance to Abdel Adrian, because even though we have a lot of ways to just tap him down, we do not care that our tokens or Abdel become tapped. We want him tapped. So we can still run anthems like Intangible Virtue, which give our tokens vigilance, but specifically it doesn't give Abdel Adrian vigilance. That's the key. We can't have him gain vigilance. Our tokens also have just pseudo vigilance anyway. You can attack with any of them even without these anthems just to get nominal damage through. And then when you go to your end step, you can exile all the tapped tokens. Abdel does not care that they're not real cards. He just cares about how many permanents he exiled this way. He sees that he exiled all those tokens and will create that many more tokens. So just saying this out for an example, if you swung in with 10 tapped tokens and Abdel Adrian doesn't have anything else under him, he still flickers, exile those 10 tapped tokens, they're gone, but 10 more untapped tokens enter the battlefield.
And since we like Flicker, we could also have our protection be things like Cloud Shift. For 1 white, you get an instant that says exile target creature you control, and then return that card to the battlefield under your control.
Cloud Shift is the least expensive version of it, but it is just exile him, return him to the battlefield. Super simple, super easy, great way to also have protection for the rest of our board. So targeted removal gets fizzled out of the way, so we don't have to worry about that. And if there's a board wipe coming in that's about to get rid of everything we built up to, well, we can just tuck every single permanent that might be going away underneath Abdel Adrian, and then we don't have to worry about them going away, because Abdel pops, everything else comes back. Similar effects that we have in this deck are Scroll Shift, Justiciar's Portal, Flicker Fate, Acrobatic Maneuver. A lot of them do a similar thing. It just exiles a creature you control. Some of them do enchantments as well, so if that ever matters, there you go. But the important thing is that most people are going to try and targeted removal Abdel Adrian and then board wipe. So you can just flicker Abdel, meaning that targeted removal doesn't even go through, and then they still have to board wipe, but now you're going to be left with much better board because all of your key components were tucked under Abdel Adrian anyway. Or if you see a massive board wipe that's coming your way and it's going to hit everything else that you haven't tucked out, you can just flicker and tuck. But we still might need to remove things. So we're going to remove things. It costs a lot the first time, and then it's free from then on out, like Spine of Ishshaw.
I know it's Spine of Ish-Saw, but I'm going to call it Spine of Ish-Shaw because I cannot say it the other way. Anyway, Spine of Ish-Shaw, a 7-mana artifact that says when Spine of Ish-Shaw enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent, and then when Spine of Ish-Shaw is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Spine of Ish-Shaw to its owner's hand.
Spine of Ish-Shaw says that nice little text that if it gets your graveyard, it goes back to your hand, so removal isn't going to be really a big thing for it. Or we could just specify, a utility type creature like Dawnbringer. ETBs gains you 2 life, pops an enchantment, or removes a card from a graveyard, which can be very useful in a lot of corner cases. Very worst, all it is it just gains you 2 life. Or we can do the most permanent thing that we can to our opponent's creatures with Princess Takes Flight.
The Princess Takes Flight is an enchantment saga for 2 and a white that has 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is exile up to 1 target creature. Chapter 2 is target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. And Chapter 3 says return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
But when we cast Princess Takes Flight and we exile a creature, and then Princess Takes Flight leaves the battlefield before that creature comes back, that creature is gone. Permanently. We don't have to worry about it. Even if Princess Takes Flight comes back and hits the 3rd saga chapter, it will not matter. Anything that was exiled before it, not a problem. Just the most recent one would come back. And so that makes everybody happy, really happy, especially when their indestructible creature just became not a thing anymore. Or you just make everybody happy regardless, because there's a category that I couldn't figure out where these 2 should go into, but I still wanted to talk about them. So let's go for it. In the category list, still in the deck, whatever. I'm talking Resolute Archangel.
Resolute Archangel is a 5-white 4/4 creature angel with flying that says when Resolute Archangel enters the battlefield, if your life total is less than your starting life total, it becomes equal to your starting life total.
Now with Resolute Archangel, you become really hard to kill. Like, really hard to kill. Because any amount of instant flicker that you have will just reset your life total. If they have a double strike swing that won't kill you on the first strike, but will kill you on the double strike, you can flicker before the second hit and still not die. This card, it makes me giggle because it's just broken. Or you could do things like Sun Titan. I mean, every single person in Magic Commander should know what Sun Titan is. It can ETB or attack to bring a permanent back with mana value 3 or less, meaning it can be a land that got put in there, or it could be another one of our Roving Harper type creatures. Or it could be things like, I don't know, Minimus Containment, which I think is the funniest little lock you can put on people's commanders, but that's just me. But I know what you're thinking. I don't need it to be a budget deck. What can I put in that makes it not $15? You could always put Anointed Procession in the deck. Anointed Procession, while it is really expensive, is really good because however many tokens you're gonna create, you double it. So if you have 6, you make 12. There's no reason not to run something like that in this deck if you have it or can afford it. Or you just throw it down in a Eldrazi Monument, one of the best anthems that you can get in the game because it makes all your creatures flying and indestructible, and then most importantly, not vigilant. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice a creature, so boo, but you got plenty of tokens. It's not gonna matter what you have to sacrifice. Just sacrifice a token, move on with your day. You got a Chroma's Will. Chroma's Will fits in here because that could be a game ender, making everything protection from all colors and essentially not being able to get killed, and then swinging in with double strike, lifelink, all that stuff. That's going to be a game ender. It is a bit more expensive, so it's just not in this deck. Or the most recent printing of something that everybody was like, white's getting way too good. Moonshaker Cavalry. You might as well put the white Crater Hoof in here because why not? You can flicker the Moonshaker Cavalry. For the most part, it is just going to be a game ender, and you will be taking out your opponents with those things. There's plenty of other options that you can throw in this deck. Honestly, get it and experiment with it. It's one of the strongest budget decks that I've ever built, and people aren't scared of it, like Atla Palani. I'm looking at you guys who were at MagicCon and saw me and saw Atla Palani and removed her 6 times on site. Never mind the fact that I ended up winning that game, but still. And by the way, thank you guys for actually helping me and supporting me through MagicCon, and everybody who subscribed to my channel after that, I appreciate it. I get that it was weird having a man with a QR code come up and say, wanna download a virus? Also, I made a Discord. Go and check that out. It's really awesome. Here's the most recent video I made. Have fun. Check it out. It's good.